6 months ago, I thought I knew what being prepared meant. I was wrong about three things. I had completely convinced myself I had right. And if you've been prepping for more than 5 years, I'm willing to bet you're wrong about at least one of them too. Welcome back to Bunker Down Survival. If you're new here, good timing. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you for still being here. I've been gone for about 6 months, and before anyone asks, no, nothing went wrong. No health issues, no drama. What happened was this. I reached a point where I realized I was creating content about preparedness faster than I was actually practicing it, and that didn't sit right with me. So I stepped back, stopped uploading, and I spent the last 6 months doing what this channel is supposed to be about, actually preparing, testing my own systems, living with my gear, not just reviewing it, finding out what worked and what failed when the theory met real life. Some of what I found confirmed everything I've been telling you, and some of it was genuinely humbling. Today, I'm going to give you the real lessons, 6 months of hard-earned experience compressed into this video. No filler, no sponsorship padding, just what I learned. We're going to cover 3 major areas. What I thought I had figured out that turned out to be wrong, what I was underestimating, and the one thing I kept coming back to that nobody in the prepper space talks about honestly. If you prep seriously, and I know most of you watching this do, some of this is going to feel familiar, and some of it is going to change how you think about your preparations. Let's get into it. Lesson 1, and this one's going to sting for some of you, because it stung for me. I had good gear. I had really good gear. Years of careful purchases, tested equipment, organized storage, the kind of setup that if you put a picture of it online, people would call impressive. And here's what 6 months of actually relying on it taught me. The gear was never the weak link. The weak link was me, my habits, my routines, my willingness to actually use the systems I'd built instead of just maintaining them for a scenario that hadn't arrived yet. Let me give you a specific example. Medical kit. Most of you watching this have one. Some of you have a very good one. But here's my question, and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you opened it and actually practiced with what's inside? Not checked the expiration dates, not restocked. Actually ran a scenario where you had to find something in the dark, under stress, with cold hands? I had an excellent medical kit, organized, labeled, current. The first time I had a real situation, nothing life-threatening, a deep laceration from a tool, I was slow. I was uncertain. I knew where everything was in theory, and I was still slow in practice. That's not a gear problem. That's a training problem. Here's what I changed, and what I'd encourage you to change if you recognize yourself in this. Once a month, pick one piece of kit. Not to inspect it. You're going to use it. Put on your tourniquet correctly, timing yourself. Load and unload your water filtration system in the dark. Start a fire with only what's in your 72-hour bag, in conditions that are actually uncomfortable. The gear is fine. The gear is probably better than fine. What most of us, and I include myself here, what most of us are underinvesting in is the repetitions. At our age, this matters more than it did at 30. Not because we're less capable. Experienced preppers are more capable in almost every meaningful way. But because at 50, 60, 70, we don't have the luxury of assuming our body will automatically do what our brain knows. Muscle memory requires actual muscle. You have to build it deliberately. The takeaway from lesson 1, audit your practice, not your equipment. You probably have enough gear. The question is whether you've trained with it enough to use it effectively when you need it. Lesson 2 is harder to talk about, and I'm going to talk about it anyway, because I think it's the most important thing in this video. What I was underestimating was the psychological weight of sustained alertness. Most prepper content, including mine, focuses on the physical and logistical side of preparedness. Food, water, power, security, medical. Those are all real, and they all matter. But there is a mental and emotional dimension to living in a prepared state, even a partial one, that is genuinely taxing. And we don't talk about it enough. I spent a period of these 6 months in a situation with significantly reduced modern conveniences. Power interruptions, limited communication, having to execute manually on systems I normally take for granted. And what I noticed, in myself honestly, was that after about 2 weeks, the mental load started to accumulate in ways I hadn't predicted. It wasn't the physical work. I expected the physical work. It was the constant low-level decision-making. Every hour has more variables when you're off-grid or in a degraded situation. What's the water situation today? What's the fuel situation? What needs to happen before dark? What's the contingency if this system fails? Individually, none of those questions are hard. Cumulatively, over days and weeks, they create a kind of fatigue that is different from physical tiredness. It's slower to recover from. What I started doing, and what I'd recommend, a daily assessment routine. 10 minutes, same time each day. You write down 3 things. What's working? What needs attention? What's your one priority for tomorrow? This sounds simple. It works because it takes the decisions out of your head and puts them somewhere external. It reduces that accumulating background noise. It also does something else. It gives you a record. After 2 weeks of daily entries, you start to see patterns. You see where your systems are actually holding versus where they're struggling. That information is more valuable than any gear review I've ever seen. The second thing I was underestimating, the value of another person who knows what they're doing. I've been self-reliant by nature my entire adult life. Most of you watching this probably have been too. It's part of the prepper mindset. You don't want to depend on systems or institutions or other people's competence. That instinct is healthy in many contexts, but in an extended situation, pure lone wolf prep has a ceiling. Not because of supplies or physical capacity, because of cognitive load and situational awareness. 2 experienced, competent people cover more variables than one. They catch each other's blind spots. They maintain morale without performing it. I'm not telling you to prep as a group if that's not your situation. I'm telling you that identifying even one other person, family member, neighbor, trusted friend, who is serious about preparedness and actually building a working relationship with them before you need it is worth more than a significant equipment purchase. Think about who that person is for you. If you can't name them, that's the gap. Now let's talk about what worked, because not everything was a revelation about gaps. Some of it confirmed that the work I'd been doing and the work many of you have been doing is exactly right. Food storage. If you've been building your long-term food storage seriously, the methodical, rotate what you eat, store what you know approach, it performs exactly the way you'd hope when you actually rely on it.
I want to be specific about something. The foods I rotated regularly and cooked with normally, 0 surprises. Familiar, reliable, comfortable in a situation where comfort matters more than you expect. The specialty emergency foods I had purchased but rarely touched, that's where I hit problems. Unfamiliar preparation, different textures, things my digestive system wasn't used to. The lesson? Your emergency food is only as good as your familiarity with it. If you store it but don't eat it, it will fail you in the moment. Not because the food is bad, but because your body and your recipes aren't ready for it. Water systems. This one I'm genuinely proud of. The gravity filtration setup I've referenced on this channel before performed exactly as tested. No issues over an extended period. Clean water consistently. Minimal maintenance, no power dependency. If you don't have a gravity-fed filtration system as part of your water prep, that should be high on your list. Not a pump filter you have to work, a gravity system that runs without your input while you're dealing with everything else. Communication. This surprised me in a good way. The ham radio investment I made 2 years ago, which I'll admit I had questioned whether it was overkill, turned out to be one of the most valuable tools I had. Not for emergency broadcasting, for maintaining situational awareness, knowing what was happening regionally when other communication channels were unreliable. That information had direct, practical value in how I manage day-to-day decisions.
If you've been on the fence about ham radio, this is me telling you the fence is the wrong place to be. Get licensed. The exam is not difficult for people with our life experience. The value is real. Physical fitness tools adapted for our age group, also genuinely strong. I want to say this clearly because I know some in our audience have mobility considerations or chronic pain. The physical prep approach that focuses on functional capability rather than performance metrics works. Grip strength training, balance work, core stability, carrying moderate loads over distance. None of this requires a gym. All of it pays dividends in a real situation. And it's the category where the investment in your 50s and 60s pays the highest return when you actually need it in your 70s. Now I want to talk about the thing that most prepper channels don't discuss honestly because it makes people uncomfortable. In an extended crisis situation, not a 72-hour power outage, but a weeks-long disruption, the most significant variable is not your gear, not your food, not your skills. It's your visibility. What I mean by this, the people around you will eventually know what you have and what you don't, not because you told them, because they can see, because your lights are on when theirs aren't, because your generator is running, because your routine looks calm when everyone else looks desperate. This is the gray man principle applied not to movement in public, but to your household and your immediate community. And it is a far more nuanced problem than most people acknowledge. I'm not telling you not to help your neighbors. That's not the lesson here. Community, as I said earlier, is one of the most valuable assets you can have. What I am telling you is that there is a significant difference between choosing to extend your resources to people you trust as part of a deliberate plan and having your resources become a target because your situation is visible. The operational security question, what do people around you actually know about your level of preparation, is something every serious prepper needs to have thought through before the situation arises, not during it. How visible is your storage? What does your vehicle look like when you leave? What have you told people casually that you might wish you hadn't? I'm not going to tell you what the right answer is for your situation. I'm going to tell you that if you haven't thought through the question deliberately, the answer is probably more visible than it should be. The flip side of this, and I want to be clear because I don't want the wrong message to land, the flip side is that the people around you, the ones you do choose to involve, those relationships need to be built before you need them. Not planned in the moment, not negotiated when you're both stressed. Built over time, through small acts of mutual aid and shared knowledge before any crisis exists. I spent part of these 6 months doing exactly that with 2 households near me. Not preaching to them, just being honest about what I know, answering questions when they asked, sharing a few practical things when the opportunity was natural. Those relationships are worth more to me now than almost anything I own. That's the honest truth after 6 months of thinking about it. So that's what 6 months taught me. 3 things that didn't work the way I expected. 3 things that worked better than expected. And 1 thing that deserves more honest conversation than it usually gets. What you're going to see from Bunker Down Survival going forward. Longer, more in-depth content. If a topic needs 30 minutes to cover properly, it's going to get 30 minutes. I'm not going to compress important information to fit a format. More focus on the 45-plus experience specifically. Because we prep differently than a 28-year-old. Our physical considerations are different. Our family situations are different. Our priorities are different. And there is almost nobody in this space talking directly to experienced adults who have been around long enough to know that the dramatic version of preparedness is mostly theater. More honesty about what doesn't work. I'm going to continue being willing to say when something I've recommended turned out to be wrong, or when the community has better information than I do. That's a feature, not a bug. And more practical community building content. Because after these 6 months, I'm more convinced than ever that the human network around you is your most important asset. If this video gave you something to think about, share it with one person you know who takes preparedness seriously. Not to recruit them to the channel, because the conversation it might start between you is worth having. New content coming every week. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to know when it drops. I'm glad to be back. Let's get to work. Prepared minds survive. Stay ready. Stay alive.